Okay, so again, data collection is the procedure of collecting, measuring, and analyzing accurate insights for research using standard validated techniques. So a researcher can evaluate their hypothesis on the basis of collected data. So in most cases, data collection is the primary and most important steps for research irrespective of the field of research, and the approach of data collection is different for different fields of study depending on the required information. But the most critical objective of data collection is ensuring that information rich and reliable data is collected for statistical analysis so that data-driven decision can be made for research. Okay, to give us more details about the topic, let us all welcome our presenter.
Again, good morning, Doc. Good morning, classmates. So now let's proceed to our discussion for today about gathering data procedures. Good morning, classmate. Good morning, Doc. So our topic for today is all about looking for answers in data collection or in data gathering. Our learning outcome for today: upon completing the lesson, the students will be able to first examine the different methods of collecting data by analyzing the researcher's topic and how to create a questionnaire item. We all know that data collection and gathering is no small feat. Collection of data would mean going to places and interacting with people. The advent of social media has bridged distances, and we can have respondents from faraway places. In the following sessions, we will talk about data collection, data organization, and data presentation. But before that, let's watch this video first. Okay, so how this video can affect our work as a researcher? How does the proliferation of fake news affect our daily lives? Were you a victim of fake news, or who among you are a victim of a fake news? Why do you think fake news are becoming rampant nowadays? As researchers, do you think this bogus news could affect our data collections or our data gathering? It is imperative that you conduct additional research about this sensitive topic, right? Fake news causes a demographic to divide. Fake news peddlers cause a huge rift between individuals. So to check for prior knowledge, kailangan natin umisip ng ways how can protect themselves or ourselves against fake news. So how to avoid being a victim of fake news? According to Judith Burns, reporting for BBC Online 2017, there are 10 ways we can be protected against fake news. First, check the source. It is important to check the source of the news. Did it come from a reputable news website? Second, check if it is coming from only one website. We should check if the article appears in other news websites. If it comes from a single site, it is probably fake. Second, check the motive. Check if the motive of the article is meant to destroy or smear someone. Next, go beyond the headline. Fake news headlines are meant to pull someone's leg. So, read the article and you will know instantly that the author is just trying to pull your leg. Next, check if it can be seen in mainstream media. So check if the article can also be found on the TV, can be heard on the radio, or printed in a reputable newspaper. Next way is to check for data sources or the citations and acknowledgement. The author used sources like books, studies, and research and has cited them properly. Shady surveys, check if the author used dubious surveys or quoted outdated survey results. Also, fake news peddlers will not include dates or will omit the dates, no? Next way is to use doubtful population samples. Big population sizes do not always mean better. Normally kasi, yung mga researchers po kasi, gumagamit lang po sila ng 1,000 to 1,500 respondents to represent a huge population. So, fake news proliferators would open use huge numbers. Next way to protect ourselves against fake news is to check if the headline is critical of a certain demographic. Journalism is always neutral. Hindi siya bias. The article is obviously in favor of, of another organization, party, individual, or group. Check the context. Last way is to check the context. See if the context and headlines are too dramatic and exaggerated. Beware of these kinds of headlines because the article is most likely lacking in substance. Our rules po kasi as a researchers is to provide researches that are true and authentic. We, as researchers, should always make sure that the data and information that we collect as is reputable. We are not foolproof, and if we are not careful, we can fall prey to this bogus news. Okay? So, that are the ways, okay, to avoid being a victim of fake news. Let's discuss data collection, data organization, and data presentation. So first, according to Whitney and Wall, 1998, data collection is the process of gathering and measuring information on variables of interest in an established systematic fashion that enables one to answer stated research question, to test the hypothesis, and to evaluate the outcomes. The data collection component of research is common to all fields of study, including physical, social science, humanities, disciplines, and other businesses. So, when we say data collection, guys, data collection is the process of acquiring, gathering data about the variables that the researchers are seeking to study. It is important in processing statistical output. Data gathering is essential in any field and discipline. In data collections, there are two sources where we can collect data. Okay? So that is primary data and secondary data. So first is primary data. Primary data collected through interviews, questionnaires, experiments, or even observation. While secondary data, a data that have been made available to researchers, these are existing documents gathered by researchers or private agencies. So primary data, guys, these are first-hand data collected for a specific purpose. It can be collected through interviews, questionnaires, experiments, or even observation. So when we say interview, diba, that is an oral exchange of question and answers. It may be done in focus groups or on face-to-face basis. It can be flexible since the researcher could very well make follow-up or answers the respondents have given. It can be costly for a researcher to conduct interview, but the data she will gather is more accurate for his or her research. The most common way of collecting data is with questionnaires kasi. It can be given personally or sent through email and quite recently administered using a social media platform. Questionnaires could be researchers develop or adaptive. Kapag adapted po kasi, a researcher must first seek permission if she could use the ready-made questionnaire. So ready na siya, i-adapt na lang natin siya. Or if he or she can alter the question so that it could be related to his or her study. Kapag naman po yung researchers create his or her own questionnaires, the research instrument should undergo validation and proofreading first before it could be administered. So, second is the secondary data. Secondary data, the data can also be acquired kasi by reviewing existing documents made available to the researchers. Secondary data may come from government agencies and international organizations. Compared with primary data, it is important that the researcher is familiar on how the secondary data was collected, what the response categories are for each question, who the populations of the study was, and others. So that is the primary and the secondary data. So again, we have now learned the importance of gathering the correct data and how we can protect ourselves from fake data and information. We can get sources, again, from primary and secondary data. Again, primary data are information that comes firsthand. It could come from a face-to-face interview, questionnaires, or even observation. And secondary data comes from sources like results conducted by government agencies or even private entities. So that is the primary data and the secondary data. Next, the data organization. It is imperative if even And even if we are riddled with information without data organization, those data could cause confusion kung hindi natin siya i-organize ng maayos. Data organization denotes the method of classifying and organizing data sets to make them more useful to the research. Data that should be encoded should be included. We could use spreadsheets like MS Excel para mas ma-present po natin yung data po natin at mas lalo po siyang more organized. In order for the data to be presented properly, it should be organized first, right? It may be organized and by encoding it on a spreadsheet like MS Excel. Researchers must make sure that the data he or she will encode should be complete and accurate. It is a good practice also that if the data is incomplete or some of the values are missing, it should be verified and leave it blank for the meantime. We all know that quantitative research entails and needs numerical data. So it is fitting that we use numbers instead of text to better measure the reactions of the variables. So here are the examples on how to organize our data. So halimbawa, given po yung dorm number 1, dorm number 2, dorm number 3. Pag ginawa po natin siya sa Excel, pwede na po siyang naka-table. Pag ganyan lang kasi, medyo malilito ka pa. Pero kung gagamitan po natin, i-organize po natin yung data, mas maiintindihan po natin siya. Organizing data can be a tedious task, remember? Nevertheless, with the correct data set, we can come up with a sum table for ease of presentation. We must remember that our data must be in numerical, for so we can measure the results easily. So, last is the data presentation. Presenting data can be fun and creative. We can use charts, graphs, and illustrations to show our data. The data that were collected will have to be summarized in preparation for its presentation. So the presentation of data may be in the form of text, but usually it is presented actually by using graphs, tables, and charts. Pag table kasi, it's a summary of data in columns. We also use charts and graphs to present data. This is normally done if you need to show data to an audience. The most common graphs are histogram, line graph, pie chart, bar graph, scatter plot, frequency polygon, and etc. So, yan po yung mga ways how to present our data para mas lalo po natin siyang mas maintindihan. Creating graphs and charts helps our readers see the data we have gathered. Researchers can easily interpret what has been observed. Making sense of data is called interpretation. Since most of the data Since most of the data we researchers collect is quantitative, data tables and charts are usually used to organize that kind of information. So, data collection or data gathering, data organization, and data presentation. So next, what are the tips in creating an effective survey question? So here are the tips in creating the effective survey question. First, in creating survey question, guys, researchers must make sure that the questions are really effective. So, paano po ba natin malalaman if the question is really effective? There are multitude of ways how we can make our questionnaires understandable to our respondents. It is important that, that the respondents understand each question so as to avoid any negative result. So first way is to what we call the pre-testing the survey. Pre-testing the survey means administer the survey you have formulated to a few potential respondents or even your friends and get feedback. Have your questionnaires validated and proofread by someone like your teacher for a grammar and content errors, or kung may kakilala po kayong English major na teacher. Mahalaga po kasi na there is a pre-testing the survey para kung halimbawa, sila muna yung nag-test ng survey mo, may nakita silang mali, at least maliliwanagan ka, malalaman mo na ay may mali ako na type dito, may kailangan akong baguhin. Kaya napakahalaga that there is a pre-testing the survey first. Okay? Bago mo yan, ipa-survey sa maraming tao talaga. Think about how you will administer your survey. So, surveys can be administered via email, phone, in person, online, or through social media. And there are different questionnaires, considerations for each mode. So, if the respondents is filing out a survey online or to social media, think about how will it look. So, first, ito po yung mga dapat i-consider nating points, right? First is giving instruction. Give specific instructions to the respondents if there are any. Make sure that your survey has clear instructions. Second is keep questionnaires short. Respondents are less likely to answer long survey questionnaires. Avoid boredom. Kung hanggang kaya na maikli yung questionnaires, okay, iklian po natin. Kasi pag sobrang haba niyan, aside sa hindi maintindihan, maboboard lang nabasahin yan ng inyong respondent. Keep question order in mind. Survey responses can be impacted by previous questions, meaning as much as possible, each question should be related to each other. Have an introduction. If a respondent reads the survey, provide a title for each section. Start with general question. It will warm up the respondents po kasi. And last is sensitive questions at the end. Sensitive questions should best be reserved at the end of the questionnaires. Have them warm up first by answering the general question. So we have a checklist no for formulating effective survey question. First, use direct and simple language. Hindi mo naman kailangan gumamit ng mga mabubulaklak na salita. Use words that can easily be understood. as only one question per item, or kung madadagdagan man po ito, hindi yung sobrang dami. If the question causes emotional discomfort, reword the question to soften the emotional response. General questions should be asked first, sensitive one goes last. For questions about behavior or attitude, ensure all reasonable answers are included. Questions should be specific as possible in relation to the research objectives. Make the question as specific as possible in terms of when, where, and how. And last is ask question of the respondents, as they will give more accurate responses when recalling information about themselves rather than for others. So that are the ways in creating an effective survey question. Pre-testing the survey first and think about how you will administer your survey. And that's all. Thank you so much, classmate. Thank you so much, Doc. And here are our references for our topic for today. Again, once again, thank you so much and God bless.
Okay, thank you very much, sir, for your a comprehensive discussions about the topic, no. Again, tama naman si sir, no. As much as possible, make it short, no. No need for you to use a words wherein parang hindi nila maintindihan, no. So in data collection method, we need to look into the phone. At present, we utilize the online, ano, the Google form, the Google, and so on and so forth. But if it is qualitative, syempre person's interview better, no? Because in-person interviews, we could able to get the in-depth, no, and high degree of confidence on the data. But of course, time-consuming nga lang siya, expensive. It can be dismissed as anecdotal. For the mail surveys, no, you can reach anyone and everyone, no barrier actually, no. Kaya lang expensive, data collection errors, and sometimes lag times, no? For the phone interview, high degree of confidence in the data collected, and it can reach almost anyone also. But it is also expensive, cannot self-administered, and need to hire an agency actually. Then for the web, online surveys like Google form, no? Cheap, it can self-administer, very low probability of data errors, no? But of course, the cons of the web or online surveys is not all your customers or your target respondents might have an email address to be in the internet, or customer or your respondents or participants may be wary of divulging informations online. So again, there are primarily three models of data collection that can be employed to gather feedback, no? Yun nga po yung mail, phone, and online. Okay, so I think that's it. Thank you for your presentation, sir.